Playing the cello should be the most marvelous and rewarding activity. However, as with any other physical pursuit, it can also very easily lead to pain and injury if we are not careful. So in today's video, I want to examine this a little bit more closely, and I'm going to be focusing on two aspects. Firstly, I'm going to talk to you about the need for adequate physical conditioning. And secondly, I'm going to show you some of the most common and widespread poor technical habits that are some of the leading injury drivers in cellists. If this is the first time on my channel, welcome. My name is Julia Morneweg, and here I share with you all the tips and tricks on how to learn to play the cello well. If you enjoy my content, please smash those like and subscribe buttons. And if you want to help me make more videos in the future, you can now even leave me a little tip via the link below. I would also encourage you to visit my website, www.juliamorneweg.com, where you can now sign up for live online workshops with me. So without further ado, let's get started on today's topic. Looking at the sheer size of the cello, it becomes obvious pretty quickly that playing this instrument is very, very physical, much more so than a lot of other instruments. So therefore, of course, it stands to reason that in order to do that, and in order to do it sustainably in such a way that we won't get into trouble at some point or another, we need to have a reasonable amount of physical conditioning. And by physical conditioning, I mean in particular two things. We need to have well-developed musculature, both in our core as well, of course, in our upper body, particularly all those muscles around our big back muscles, the muscles around our shoulders. It's really, really important that those are sufficiently trained really to sustain the amount of stress that we are obviously in some way or another going to put them under when we play. So what does that mean in reality? I very much learned that the hard way quite early on in my professional career, when I at that point I'm 5'6" tall, and I think I weighed about 115 pounds. So there wasn't an awful lot of me. And needless to say, sooner or later, I started to experience a lot of pain from obviously playing. We're not talking, half an hour here or there. We are talking 6-8 hours a day. And plus traveling and everything else that comes with that. And I started to experience at some point a lot of pain, particularly in my right side. So cut a long story short, after being sent from pillar to post for a while, I was very lucky to finally be referred to the most wonderful physiotherapist, who took one look at me and said, well, there's nothing wrong with you as such, but you haven't got anywhere near the required musculature needed to sustain the amount of playing that you do. So that day I got my first set of dumbbells, and we have not parted company since. And that was really the turning point for me. It's completely changed my physique. It's completely ultimately also changed my playing, and I'm pleased to say that since then I have not had any further problems. Nowadays I have sort of taken this to the next level, and for me going to the gym and lifting weights is as much part of my week as the practice is. So I think I can well and truly say that at 40 I'm in far better physical shape than I was when I was 20. So of course I am not saying to you, go out there, get yourself that gym membership, and start lifting those barbells. No, not at all, because ultimately the level of playing and the amount of playing that I have to sustain is on a very, very, very high level. So it can really range from, you know, anything to sometimes to the extreme 6 or 8 hours a day, plus traveling, plus teaching, plus time on the computer. So that's really the extent of that. And of course, for that, you have to look at your body almost in the same way that an athlete does. So for someone obviously just starting out or just playing the cello for fun and maybe occasionally playing an hour or two here and there, of course, therefore, you know, that means you won't need to kind of go quite as far, but nonetheless, you will certainly benefit greatly from a lot of exercises that you can really do at home for core strengths, really anything from planks to push-ups, even if they need to be modified against the wall or on your knees. Even you can use either lighter dumbbells or I think when I first started out, I was using small water bottles, or I think at some point it was a very large butternut squash. So you can really use anything you have at home, just really to work and condition these muscles which you need. And of course, now with the benefit of YouTube, in the same way that you are watching my videos, there are plenty of videos out there as well on conditioning as well. So, you know, it's not something which takes hours and hours and hours. There are really, you know, a lot of these exercises I do at home, always while I'm waiting for the kettle to boil to make my cup of tea. Yeah? While you have these 2 minutes, you pick something up and you just do a little bit of training here and there, or you do some squats or anything like that. It's just getting that body a little bit more active. And the other thing that we of course can't forget, and this is why I have now at the age of 40 really stepped up my physical training, is because it's from about that age onwards, and I'm afraid to say for women even more so, that we start to lose muscle mass gradually. So from about 40, 45 onwards, we are talking between 3 and 8% roughly per decade. So in other words, by the time we get to our late 50s, 60s, we might already have 15% less muscle mass than we had in our 40s or in our late 30s. So, and of course, that alone means that as we get older, we become more prone to injury. So I'm very much trying to stay ahead of that curve now, and really sort of make sure that that I keep that conditioning that I have built up. So that is a very, very important point. The other thing, of course, is that we also physically, before we're playing, while we're playing, and after we're playing, we need to warm up in some way. And again, I think that becomes more important as we are getting older. So I think it was last week perhaps, or the week before, that I, for instance, published a video about what I call the hand gym, using one of those little exercise balls. So that is already quite a good way, certainly, to warm up the hands before we actually start physically playing the cello. But also our bigger muscle groups as well. Yeah, there is absolutely no harm in actually already stretching a little bit before we even start playing, yeah, just to get a little bit of movement flexibility here into all of our muscles and joints. And I think another thing that's really important, and that's something which I'm personally absolutely terrible at, is the importance of taking breaks. I find that once I really get into a practice session, I sort of develop that tunnel vision a little bit, and I just, want to stay there until I get it right. And the next time I get off my chair, 3 hours have passed. So no, don't do that. So that's really something that I'm having had to train myself really to actually, no, do a little bit of playing, do 15, 20 minutes, and then, you know what, stand up, walk around, make yourself a cup of tea, maybe the weather is nice, walk around the garden a little bit, come back to it. And I can guarantee you that every single time after I've done that and I come back, the playing gets easier and the playing gets better. So, because I think not only do we need that break physically, but we also need it cognitively as well. So breaks are important, and especially in those breaks and after playing, what is important is stretching. Stretching is incredibly important. Really, all of our muscles here and now. You see what I'm stretching out here, particularly my lower arm muscles. Another thing that I like to do is literally just bending over and just hanging down, really, to the point. And very often when I get up and I hang down to start with, I can't get my fingertips anywhere near the floor, and I will really stay there and breathe and breathe and breathe until I finally can get my hands flat on the floor again. So that is another thing that I used to do actually for quite a long time, and that was yoga. And yoga actually did two things for me. All the, the stretching, the conditioning, but I think the most important thing it taught me was proprioception. The learning to become aware of the alignment of your body. And that is something extremely important. And that really now leads me into the second part of my video, of the kind of poor technical habits that a lot, and I mean a lot of cellists have, that stem from very often quite poor alignment, and that are some of the main drivers of injury for us. If you ask me to name the absolute undisputed number one bad habit, it's one that I have spoken about in several other videos. I've touched on it already, and that is the alignment of the upper body and the retracted left shoulder. There's twist in the spine. Doing that alone is something that causes so many problems for us. So let's examine that a little bit more closely. First of all, how it happens, why it happens, why and what do we do about it. So what I'm referring to is really that, yeah. So people playing like that, with the elbow pointing all the way back, the left shoulder facing back, the right shoulder being forward, and before you know it, and of course you're trying to sort of keep your head straight, so before you know it, you have an entire cocktail of problems there. So let's just look at that. I'm going to put the cello down for a second. and I'm going to recreate the thing. So look what we've got here. So we've twisted our spine. Actually, it's not something, you can't twist your shoulders by themselves. It doesn't work. We can only twist our spine. So it's actually a problem that originates quite low down here, almost sort of in the hips and pelvis. Yeah. So you've got that. So just if you try to sit like that, you can already feel that there are all sorts of muscles here which are being strained, and actually it compromises your breathing as well. That's another really important aspect. Yeah, and then of course you're trying to look straight ahead, so you have constantly got this stretch here in your neck muscles going down here in your scalenes. So it's really something, if you're just doing that on its own, you can already feel how uncomfortable that is. However, when you look at quite a lot of cellists, you see that many people spend hours and hours and hours playing like that. And I'm afraid to say that that particular issue is something which can already cause a lot of problems, even in very young players. And I'm afraid that is something I have seen repeatedly with people coming to me who at a very, very young age, even sometimes really in childhood age, already had problems that needed treatment, that needed either physiotherapy treatment or even orthopedic treatment to get on top of that. So that is really something to watch out for. So it's something which with my students I am absolutely militant about really teaching them to make sure they are aware of their upper body alignment. So now, first of all, let's talk a little bit about what causes us to do that. And I think there are a couple of root causes. And one of them, certainly when I see it in children, and I see it a lot in children when they come to me for the first time, is in people who started out with stickers on the fingerboard. Now, I know I made a video about this topic last month. The comment section on this got very spicy. But I have not changed my view on it. Unfortunately, if you're starting out in such a way that you're constantly having to look over to your left, you are baking in this twist. That is simply a reality, because in order to see it, you are having to turn. So without trying very hard, you will be picking up a problem right there. Now, the other issue, and I touched on this in the video I made about the setup. I think it's called The Most Important Thing to get right, is if the cello is aligned in such a way that it's either too flat or worse, even falling out to this side. Yeah, so that in order to play on the A string, you're having to go around this way. So that's why in this video I talked about this idea of getting the left knee here a little bit behind this side, so that the A string side of the cello comes up. Yeah, so that we've got sufficient space. And now the other thing, the sort of alignment method that I teach to my students is very much just two things. A, try to imagine that in your shoulders you have got eyes which are looking straight ahead. Yeah, so here, those are the eyes, look straight ahead. And secondly, try to really watch out that your shoulders are right above your hip bones. Yeah, so not a little bit in front or a little bit behind or twisted, but really right above. Yeah, so you want to really play as much as possible with everything from the head right down to your sit bones being in one line. And with my head, I really try to imagine that there is a cord that sort of comes out of my head and that's attached to the ceiling and that pulls me up. Yeah. So another thing to watch out for a little bit is not to do that while you're playing, and that's where the core strings comes in. That's why you need to do those planks and everything, because if the core is weak, you're going to collapse in that way, and you're going to do sort of what my students tend to call the prawn, yeah, that which you don't want to do. So that's for me the main one. Now another complaint that I'm hearing about quite a lot from you guys actually in my comments and messages is lots of you complaining about pain in your right elbow. Now, in my experience, our body is very adept at telling us when we are not using it correctly. And when our elbow is starting to kick off, that is usually a surefire way of the body telling us that there is a lot of tension in here. Yeah. And what usually the cause of that, again, that's super common, especially in beginners, is that the elbow gets raised and stays there. Yeah. So rather than really the feeling that you want to have, especially at the heel of the bow, is really that the elbow, the upper arm, everything here is completely empty. Yeah, everything is, gravity is pulling it straight to the floor. There is no, and I mean absolutely no lifting going on here whatsoever. Yeah, so that because if you're here and you're already starting with that, I mean, I haven't even played a note yet and I'm already getting sore. Yeah, because what you're doing is now you're actually engaging, especially your triceps muscle here. Yeah, that one that kind of ends down here. You're engaging that to lift the arm, and that is not a happy place to be in for a long time. So one of the tests that I always sort of do with students, really, when I want to, I mean, first of all, I can hear just from the sound usually, is there tension or is there not? But another test is when you just feel the muscle right above your elbow here, that one. It should really feel like raw meat. Yeah, very squishy. Yeah? The moment there is tension, it'll start to feel a little bit like overcooked steak. And well, what is overcooked? Why is overcooked steak chewy? Because of course steak is also just muscle. It's because when you overcook it, the muscle seizes up, right? And that's the same that's happening here. So we have just got a lot of tension in here. And so you can hear that, you can hear it in the sound. Yeah, versus you can hear that it chokes and it doesn't have that nice free ring. So the hardest thing actually, I think, is as far as sort of right hand sound production is concerned, is for people to learn to do nothing. Yeah, really to just the complete letting go. That really, that idea of now I'm holding my arm up and now imagine that somebody is really flicking a switch and turning off the power supply, and you really hear that thud, yeah, that crash, and that's a feeling that absolutely empty. And we're really just working with balance here. There is no lifting, there is no tension. in order to get to that point, again, particularly in the right hand, and that's something I said when I was doing this ball hand gym video, the more muscle you have, the less likely you are to grab, because more muscle equals more control, and more control always equals less grabbing. Yeah, so it's really this learning to become aware of. I think one of the main skills we have to develop is that, and this is where what I was saying earlier about the yoga, why I think this is so useful. It teaches you to scan your body for tension. And that's something that we have to be able to do. Yeah. So especially in our right arm here, that area around the elbow, around the hand. Another really common sort of trigger point is a base joint of the thumb as well. Really, that's, you know, I kind of always call this sort of pre-flight checks. Yeah, before you start playing, check your shoulders. Are they really down? Are they facing straight ahead? Elbow, is the elbow completely empty? Hand, is the contact on the bow as minimal as it can be? And when you first start doing that, I think you will, pretty much every time you do that, you will find that you are holding tension somewhere. Yeah, so that is something I never get tired of teaching that, because even I occasionally I will still go, actually, you know what, okay, well, let's see what happens if I relax even more. So in summary, really developing body awareness is extremely important. And again, that's where I think working in shorter bursts is much more effective. Really, working in shorter practice bursts with full awareness will get you far better results than, you know, this sort of just willpower driven kind of just sort of, you know, pig-headed kind of practice, which certainly when I was a student at, I think, like most people, I was an absolute master at. But I practice far less now overall in terms of hours, because I simply don't have them. But I found I can get far more in terms of results and output if I actually do less, but with good concentration and absolute top-notch awareness. So those are really my main thoughts on the issue of pain and injuries. So as usual, let me know what you think. Let's have a chat about it in the comments section. And as usual, I hope this was helpful to you, and I look forward to seeing you in a couple of days for another one. See you soon.